I'm Caroline. I used to sail competitively for 12 years before I signed up for my first marathon, the Bergen Marathon, in my home country, Norway, and very unexpectedly won it, running a 3:05. That same year, I signed up for my second marathon and ran a 2:46 at the Florence Marathon. And if you want to learn all about my story, I have 3 different videos for it, so check them out up there. And then after that, I suffered from 6 bone stress injuries, and it's just been a really, really rough time. But the good thing is that I have learned so much about marathon running, and that's really why I've started this channel. I want to share all of it with you guys. And now I'm back and I'm running not harder, but smarter. I really want to share everything that I've learned about running marathons with all of you guys. I'm also a marathon running coach, so my one-on-one coach link is below, and I have 3 marathon training plans depending on your level, and I'll leave a link to that also below. I also have a free From Zero Running to Consistency linked below as well. So this is the first episode of my comeback series where I talk about everything that I'm doing to run my fastest marathon while feeling my best and my strongest. So this video is all about managing running load. So we're going to talk about how much running volume is right for you. We're going to talk about how much to increase with per week. We're also going to talk about recovery days. Often people call them rest days. We're going to talk about deload weeks. And then lastly, at the very end, I'm going to let you in on my secret to overcoming my bone stress injury spiral. Because if you watch my story, you know that I suffered from 6 bone stress injuries, and it was a very rough time. So how much running volume is right for you? So if you're like I was, you probably think more is better. And while it's true that there is some correlation between running volume and performance, here is what I've learned over the years. It doesn't matter how much running volume you're doing if you're not absorbing the training. This is why I think it's extremely important to not be too fixated on what the best people are doing, because it might be that, like, obviously the best people are absorbing the training they're doing. So just because they're doing that training doesn't mean that that training is going to work for you. So really, to answer the question, how much running volume is enough for you, you need to be asking yourself, or your coach needs to ask you, how much running volume have you been doing consistently for quite some time, and use that as your baseline. You can also ask yourself, how much endurance training have you done consistently? And then you really want to build from there. So if you're completely new to running, I do recommend downloading my free From Zero Running to Consistency program. It just eases you slowly into running. So because running is an impact sport, it makes it that much more important to do a very slow and easy build-up if you want to avoid running injuries, and also if you just want to feel good running and enjoy running more. And then I also want to add that when you're figuring out how much running volume is right for you, I want you to really ask yourself, what type of a person am I? So as a coach, this is something that I really am big on, is understanding the runner that I'm working with and his or her personality. So for example, my personality is definitely pretty competitive and always wanting to do my best, and that very often leads to me overdoing a workout, and then I get super tired and I keep pushing it until eventually my body breaks down, and that's why I probably suffered from a lot of injuries. So by understanding my personality, I've adapted my training, so I'm focusing a lot more on not overdoing my workouts. So for me, training on heart rate has been a very big factor in that. And then someone else, maybe they're really good at training in January. Like then they're like training every single day, and then it's like nothing, no workouts, maybe like once every other week. So for that personality, I'd say the biggest thing is going to be how can I stay consistent over a longer period of time. And a big part of that is probably going to be to hold yourself back in January and not be training every single day, but instead have a plan where you're doing a lot more easy miles to not overcook it and to have that motivation for a longer period of time. All right, so we got our baseline. We know how much volume we can handle without getting injured. And then the next question is, how much running volume should you increase with per week? So there's this rule of thumb that's 10%, meaning that 10% of what you've been doing up until now, you can increase with for the next week. So the people I work with are typically pretty new to marathon training, but they have been running for a little while. So typically they're running about 3 to 4 times per week. And I have them running on time, not by distance. And that is because if you run on distance, how long you're actually out there is going to vary so much. So I think for someone who is fairly new to marathon training, it's a lot safer to run by minutes and then have the focus be on effort and heart rate instead of paces and distance. But if you're fairly consistent with your running paces, like your easy paces and your threshold paces, it really doesn't matter if you're running on distance or time. But again, as someone who is fairly new to marathon training and maybe your paces will improve quickly, maybe you just in general are running at a slower pace, it is very beneficial, I think, to have that athlete run on time and not distance. Obviously, that rule of thumb is very general. It's a lot more important to look at how much of your intensity is increasing per week. So at least I've noticed that my body struggles a lot more with recovering after harder miles than easy miles. So I really recommend that as you're building your mileage, really make sure that those miles are mostly easy miles. And even if you have like faster pace work, having that be more marathon specific or half marathon specific, not like sprints. So whenever you're working above lactate threshold, you're using your anaerobic system, and that's when you're running as fast. And when I say fast, I just want to keep emphasizing this. I'm talking about relative fast. So fast for you. So it can be a slow pace, but if it's really fast for you, if you're out of breath and you're using your anaerobic system, then that's going to require much more from your body to recover from. So both in terms of muscle damage, but also in terms of cardiovascular system. So you probably cannot have as many easy miles if you're pushing above that threshold, because you're carrying all that fatigue from that workout. So I'd say the 10%, keep it mostly easy in the beginning, and then try to aim for about 10 to 20% of your total volume at that higher effort pace. And again, that higher effort pace doesn't mean like full out sprint. It means lactate threshold or slightly below lactate threshold. So next off, we're going to be talking about rest days. So lately, I have switched my view on rest days. So instead of calling them rest days, I call them recovery days. And that is because I listened to a podcast where they talked about how you should actually be spending the time that you normally spend training recovering. And obviously, like, a lot of us are very busy with our jobs and family and friends, and honestly just all that life has us doing. It's a lot. So for me, at least, having a rest day it also means more time to catch up on everything else I have to do. But I do like the idea of calling it a recovery day instead of a rest day, meaning that the point is for your body actually to build back stronger. So most of us know that training inherently breaks our body down, and it is during recovery that we hopefully are able to build back stronger. So it's just really important that during these days or during these hours where we're recovering, that we're actually allowing our body to go through its processes of building back stronger. And this is something that I have been honestly really horrible at in the past. I have just been really stressed with work and my MBA and whatnot, and struggled with just like sitting still. In my defense, I've felt like I don't have the time to really sit still and recover. But I think for sure that is something that has held me back. Focusing on doing less and letting your body recover. So one of the things I've implemented as far as recovery days is I do red light therapy and I do cryotherapy. So I do this in San Diego at a place called Chillin' Out. And then I've also been doing cryotherapy. So as far as like ice cold, I can do a whole video on cold plunges and saunas and all the recovery methods. In short, I try to keep my cryotherapy and my cold plunges for my recovery days, not after my workouts, because I actually want that inflammation after my workouts. Then I've also started doing hot yoga, and because it's my recovery day, I definitely do not go hard for the hot yoga. It's really just about breathing. It's about stretching and really like loosening up my body, and I love it. It's for sure one of the things I've implemented now in 2024 that I feel like has done my body really well. And then I'd say if you're new to running and you're training for your first marathon, I recommend having at least 2 recovery days per week. And you can always add an extra training day if you're feeling really well. But I think it's better to start off with more recovery days. So even 3, even 4, and then decreasing as you see that you're feeling really good. Because again, it's so much better to be absorbing that training and recover a little bit too much in the beginning, and then also enjoy the process. And then as you get fitter, then you can handle more and more running volume and other training volume and actually build back stronger from that training volume. So as a new runner, you are learning how much volume and running your body can really absorb. And what I've found that really helps me see how my body's responding to my training is recovery weeks, or what's often referred to as deload weeks. So this is something that I incorporate with my own training and with my coaching clients' training on a regular basis, again, just to really make sure that we are absorbing the training. So for example, say we've been building my clients' volume for about 5 weeks, and we're still pretty new to building mileage, so it's still been a safe increase per week. Then at that 5 mile a week, we'll include a recovery week where we decrease the volume by 20%. And then we'll see how fatigued are we during that deload week. And if that running client is feeling really fatigued, that's a sign that like this recovery week is really needed and that we're on the threshold as far as what your body can absorb. Then we will often stabilize the training after that, because again, we know we're at that threshold. However, if during that deload week, we're just feeling super fresh and we're like, wow, like I'm just feeling like I'm holding back, okay, that's a good cue that we can be increasing even more. And we haven't quite come or reached that threshold for training. Deload weeks, it's another way of looking at deload weeks as training periodization. So just a way of alternating between a higher mileage week and a lower mileage week. You can also train morning cycles where you have deload weeks. So you can do like 2 hard weeks, to recovery weeks. There's so many different ways of doing this. So this is really about figuring out what training method your body is responding optimally to. So what is my secret to overcoming my 6 bone stress injuries and just stay injury-free like I have been for the 2 last years? So this is gonna sound super cliche, but my secret is personal development. So truly, when I say that, truly understanding how my belief systems work. What is it? How is it that I function? When I set myself the goal of running in the Olympics, I thought that I have to be running 7 days a week. I have to have double sessions. I have to have the long run. I have to have at least 2 threshold sessions per week because I saw the people running in the Olympics. This is what they were doing. And I for sure thought that running harder would make me better and faster. So what I then did is at every workout, I was having that goal in my mind, and I was thinking that I needed to really push, and I was comparing my times to where I had to be to that goal. And what happened was that I was always pushing, and I was overworking myself too much, and especially with me being such a new runner, that was just leading to my body not being able to handle that. And if you watched my story, you also saw that mental stress was a huge part of this. I got my undergrad degree and I worked for a startup. I applied for my MBA. I got my MBA, so I've definitely been doing a lot of other things, not running. So for sure, a huge part of it was that. But it's also understanding that my personality is to do more and to work harder, and how that was holding me back. So I was determined to do these sessions and do this volume instead of working with where I was currently at. And I think that this is a huge mistake that a lot of people are doing, just like me, is that they have this goal and then they're so focused on what the person who's reached that goal is doing. So probably if you're watching this video and you see that I'm a 2:46 marathoner, probably thinking, oh, what is she doing? And what can I do that will get me to where she is? But the problem with this is that you are not at that level right now. And by doing those things, you are doing very often too much. So instead, what I've realized and what I recommend all of you guys to do is to figure out where you are currently at. What level of miles per week can you absorb and you're feeling good? And this is kind of the whole point about building that base, right? And then doing a little bit more, whether that be increasing your miles, whether that be, adding a little bit of threshold, whether that be adding an extra cross training session, and then seeing how your body responds to that. So if you're like way too exhausted and like not feeling good the next days, then okay, maybe that was a little bit too much. Maybe we try it again next week, but not push as much. Or maybe you feel great, so maybe you can keep increasing a little bit, whether again that be mileage or whether that be intensity. But having that baseline, working from where you're currently at and just doing small things and seeing how your body responds, that is a sustainable, smart way to go about reaching your goals. So on that note, I think that our goals are there where we envision ourselves in the future. They shouldn't be what we're trying to hit right now. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I think that big mindset shift, which is for me come from working on myself and figuring out how I work and how I make decisions and think about my training, my life. That's it. So subscribe to my channel if you like my content and to follow my journey as I'm working towards the 2028 Olympics. Also, like this video and let me know in the comments if there's any questions you have, and also what you want to see more of on my channel. And also, I'd love to hear just your experiences with marathon training. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Okay, ja, aber wir jetzt. Okay, this is definitely pretty awkward with people walking. Okay, I have like 5 seconds. Just wait for that person to move. Definitely quite awkward.